Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to our beautiful JNForever family on Zoom. It's really good to see everyone again. I missed everybody. After a 6-week lull due to the Chagim and our gala evening, we are back with our amazing weekly events to support, encourage, inspire you as always. And yes, we are still in lockdown. And yes, the virus only rears its ugly head at 9 o'clock at night. That's one of my jokes. But hopefully things will change in the next few weeks as promised. But in the meantime, here we are. And I want to just thank Tammy for her unconditional assistance and her support. She puts up with me changing invitations and minuscule details all the time. That's the lawyer in me, but she's so good. Thank you, Tam. The usual in-house rules, everybody's on mute and you can ask questions in the chat box, and there will be time for questions at the end. Girls, happy to answer anything. You all know me by now. I'm Jackie Chait, the Legacy Manager for JNF Victoria, and leaving a bequest is an incredibly meaningful thing to do for your descendants. They won't suffer. You can leave 1% to Israel and 99% to your family, and it will go a long way to bettering the country we all hold so dear. So let's discuss it. It's doable. I've had quite a few wonderful chats with people recently, and it's just becoming a more and more accessible thing to do, especially, you know, now people are more cash strapped. So it's something we can think about in the long term. Today, and by popular demand, we are offering what the first part of 2 in the series of these amazing tours that we can sit back and relax in the comfort of our own homes. We don't have to check passports. We don't have to fit clothes in little suitcases. And we are going to be bringing you Southern Israel today, which is a beautiful, beautiful part of Israel, as you will see. We will start with our amazing, amazing Igal in Sydney. He will sum up and give further insight at the end as well. He will answer any question. He knows about every stone and every pebble in Israel. A little bit of history about Igal for those who weren't here last time, but for those who were, he is our JNF Education Shaliach, National Education Shaliach. He arrived in Sydney in 2015 on a couple-year contract, yes, Igal, and he's still here. They simply will not let him go. He's our asset. He is passionate about developing educational values by leading and raising the generation of tomorrow's leadership to strengthen the connection to Israel. And Igal was an integral part of the inaugural JNF educational study tour to Israel in January 2018. And this tour has now grown from strength to strength, where teachers and or staff from schools around Australia in both Jewish and non-Jewish and secular schools in varying roles go to Israel, see all these incredible sites, and then integrate their positive experiences and impressions of JNF and Israel into their curriculum upon their return. And this is an incredibly powerful tool that was initiated by Igal and his team. That's where you start, by teaching the youth. He has a master's degree in law from Berkeley, California, and he practiced law in Israel. And prior to that, he was involved with the Jewish Agency and B'nai Akiva Shnat program in Europe. He's married to Noah and has 3 children, Abigail, Gabriel, and Michael. Zev Kedem is our man on the ground in Israel. He's been a certified tour guide in Israel's Ministry of Tourism since 1973 and has worked with JNF in various roles for 30 years. He's a true Sabra, as his accent attests to, and he has degrees in Jewish history and Israeli education. And although he's retired for a full-time work at JNF, he likes to keep himself active by doing these tours, both in person and these virtual tours for us. As I've said personally, I had the privilege of being on his bus on the Educators Tour in January 2020, and he is an absolute mensch and a gentleman, and his love and passion for the country is palpable. He just gets joy and nachas from doing what he does and sharing his vast knowledge. So over to you, Igal.
Shalom, 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 everyone. Shalom from Sydney. Shalom, Jackie. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, everyone. I want to say, and I won't say a lot, because I want to start the tour. I'll just say that last time, the previous tour that we done together was, I got plenty of people of messaging me and calling me. So I really want to encourage everyone that if you have any questions or you want to keep in touch, just you know, it will give you my number, and of course you have Jackie's and Tammy. Our mission here is to share our passion to Israel, to you, and I'm sure you have all the passion in the world for Israel. And in our tours, in the JNF tours, we always show the X factor, the other things that maybe you won't see in other places, or maybe you haven't seen also when you visited Israel. So just very, very quickly, what we're going to go today, we're going to start with Masada. We're going to be in the Negev. How amazing is to climb the Masada. We're going to see the Dead Sea. We're going to see the Vido Center. We're going to see the Arad Valley Reservoir. We're going to go to Yatir Winery. I hope you have a bit of wine. I know it's a bit early in the morning, but yes, in the middle of the desert, in the biggest forest in Israel, you have a winery. You are going to visit the Gilat Nursery and also visit an Ethiopian village called Beta Israel. So, without other ado, here we go. And straight after the tour, I'm going to give you a bit of more insights, just a few minutes, and then we have questions. So I'm going to share the screen, keep tuned, and enjoy.
Shalom, Boker Tov. Our second virtual tour in Israel. We are starting today very early in the morning. It's cold in the desert. We are near the mountain of Masada and we are going to climb the mountain. From the level of the Dead Sea, the lowest place in the world, to the top of the desert cliff of Masada, about 500 meters high. On the top of the mountain, we will meet the refuge place for King Herod, an amazing story, beautiful landscape. Let's go up to catch the sunrise. Let's go. Wonderful. We have made it. You can enjoy the sunrise just above the mountains of Moab in Jordan. And after that, let's talk about the story of Masada. We are in the Snake Pass Gate. Try to imagine, years ago, people walked in the desert for days to arrive to this place. Then they had to climb 500 meters and they come to the gate. But in the gate, they have to wait. Not everybody is going in. So they would sit on the benches over here. With a little bit of imagination, you can imagine it. And then only if they are allowed, they can go in. If not, they have to go all the way down. Let's go in, we are allowed. What is the story of Masada? How do we know about it? Well, we know from the books of Josephus Flavius, a Jewish historian that lived at the time, and he wrote a book about the history of the Jewish wars against the Romans. And he's telling us about King Herod that ruled the country about 2000 years ago. King Herod was hated by the Jews. He was very cruel, even to his family, but he was a great builder. For example, he built the second temple, the Wailing Wall. He built the port town of Caesarea, and he needed a refuge because he was afraid from the people. So he also built Masada. Truly, he never came to live here, but this is the story about the mountain. 70 years later, the Jews uprised against the Romans. Jerusalem was conquered in the year 70 after the Common Era. The second temple was destroyed, and a bunch of rebels fled to the desert and conquered Masada. The Romans that heard about the place, especially they were caring about En-Gedi and Oasis, 20 kilometers from here, they surrounded the mountain, 8,000 warriors with many slaves that gave them the service. They built a wall all around the mountain. They built also a ramp that allowed them to break the wall with an iron ram and to conquer the place. The night before they came in, the commander of the place, Elazar ben Yair, gathered the people and told them, let's kill ourselves, let's not fall to the end of the Romans. That's the story of Masada. Let's go now and see what is the story of the archaeology. Does it match the stories that we know from the book? Look how many storehouses they have over here, 20 meters long each of them. And in the archaeological digging, they found jars of oil, of wheat, of dates. And this is one interesting story. They took one of the seeds of the date and planted it in the Arava. And today, when you are visiting in Kibbutz Ktorah in the Arava, you can see a palm tree that grew from the date, but the date was here 2000 years ago. So you can see that there was plenty of storeroom and no problem of food over here on the mountain. Behind me, you can see one of more than a dozen cisterns, water reservoirs that were built on the mountain. Most of the water reservoirs were on the slope of the mountain, where they captured the flood water and channel it into the reservoirs. With donkeys, they brought the water up to the water gate, and from the water gate right down to those reservoirs on the top of the mountain. There was enough water to irrigate vegetables that they grew, fresh vegetables on the top of the mountain. Josephus Flavius mentioned a public bathhouse in the middle of the desert. Here is the bathhouse. You have a yard in front where people could do some gymnastic. After that you have a room to undress, and after that a cold room, a warm room, and the most interesting one is of course the hot room, the sauna. We are now in the Western Palace. This is not a regular house. Even in terms of our day, this is a palace. You can see the seat of the crown. There is a beautiful mosaic that was ruined by the zealots. They didn't need the mosaic, they didn't care for the mosaic, they care for the everyday life, and that's the reason they put a small wall to make a kitchen. This is one of the palaces that was mentioned by Josephus Flavius, and there is another one in the north side, a very, very magnificent place, made out of 3 steps. are sitting right now in the synagogue. The synagogue is related not to King Herod time, but to the other period of the rebels. This is a big room, the largest that was found here. You can see that there are benches all around, which means that people gathered around here. You can see that there were pillars that hold the roof. This is quite large room for a roof, so they needed to have the support of pillars. And in the corner there is a room where they found scrolls from the Bible and from the book of Yechezkel. This is probably one of the most ancient synagogues that were found in the world. We can see here that the wall that surrounded the mountain, 1400 meters of wall, was broke in a certain place. This is the place probably that the Romans broke in, and that was the night that Elazar ben Yair gathered the people and asked them to commit a suicide. I would like to conclude the visit in a room that was the place of the most exciting finding on the mountain. In 1965, the archaeologist Yigael Yadin found here 10 pieces of clay with Hebrew names on it. You remember the story from Josephus Flavius? The last 10 people draw lot in order to find who will be the last one to kill the rest of them. And maybe those were the lots that were used, because one of the lot was the name of Ben Yair, the commander of the mountain. We will stay with a big question. Was the decision right or not? A big dilemma. We are a tiny country. We definitely don't have the highest mountain in the world, but at least we have the lowest place in the world. This is the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is about 10 times saltier than the regular ocean, about 34% of salt, and this creates a very unique situation. One can float on the water, even read a newspaper on the water while he's laying on it. And the Dead Sea is a combination of many other things. First of all, tourism. It's a very special place to visit and to experience. People know that the water and the mud of the Dead Sea can be very good for their skin, for example. So this is also a place to come to cure yourself. This is also a big place for industry, because the minerals like potassium, magnesium, and bromine are very important for fertilizer as well as for medicine. So in Israel and on the other side, in Jordan, there are big industries of carving those minerals from the sea. By the way, the south part of the sea, today more kind of ponds, big pools, where they carve those minerals, while the north side is the sea itself. And in the north side, you have a depth of about 200 meters, and here in this side, it's much, much shallower. Also, there is a beautiful oasis of En Gedi, where you can walk in beautiful desert oasis, enjoy the sweet water, swim, and even drink the water. From the Dead Sea area to the valley of Arad, and with us Yaakov Bendor. Yaakov is a farmer on one end, and on the other end is the general manager of the winery of Yatir.
Hi Zev, I'm happy that you came to visit us in the valley of Arad. It's in so arid area, but you see that the desert bloom with the help of JNF that build the reservoir and now prepare to enlarge the reservoir, 50% more water, and it's helped us to grow with the agriculture, and also we not pollute the rivers and the valleys of Judean desert.
Thank you very much. Let's have a look in the winery. We arrived to the Yatir winery, and the Yatir winery is very special. We are in a very, very arid area, and I don't know how you grow grapes around here.
Even though we don't get too much water, we get to irrigate the right amount of water to the grapes. You need to know that you cannot irrigate it too much, because then the fruit itself simply enlarges itself and loses some of its aroma. So the less water inside the grape, the better the wine would be. When you talk about producing wine, you always think about the soil where the grapes grow. So in our area, even if we grow grapes like Cabernet Sauvignon, like Merlot, like Shiraz, Petit Verdot, they would be distinct in their flavors and in their aromas than a winery that grows its vineyards up at the north.
Can we go and have a taste of the wine? It sounds so good.
Well, I agree with you. There's no way you would come to the winery and remain thirsty. So I'm pouring here Yatir Mount Amasa. It's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Shiraz, and Petit Verdot. It's aged for 1 year in oak, the oak that you've just seen. But it's called Amasa, Mount Amasa. That means it's our Cabernet. So it's really representing the desert mountain, the desert area, vines that have a different and a distinctive flavor, different than other places from the world.
L'chaim. Yatir, the northern Negev, less than 200 millimeters of rain, and Israel succeeded to plant here the biggest forest in Israel. About 10,000 acres of forest built out of pine trees, of cypress trees, of pistachio, different variety of trees, and in between in the valleys you have groves of cherries and vineyards and agriculture. Beautiful area that combine flowers, trees, picnic area, bike route, trails, archaeology, and even education with the camp of the Jewish National Fund Education Division. Foresters from all over the world come to learn how did we do it. There is a research station here, and we found out that the trees here changing CO2 to O2 exactly like trees in Europe. And don't forget, we are in the desert. So this is a unique situation, a beautiful area to come to enjoy in the northern Negev of Israel. Just arrived from the forest, the beautiful forest Miar Yatir. And it's quite amazing to see a nice forest that's growing in the desert. We can say that here everything starts.
Yes.
Okay, the forest of Israel, 250 million trees that were planted, started here.
Welcome to the Gilad nursery. There are 3 main nurseries in JNF, one in the north part, one in the central part, and here in Gilad is the biggest one with an area of 23 hectares. It's very, very big nursery and very wide varieties of plants we are growing here. We grow here about 80 different species of forest trees. We are talking about cypress, eucalyptus, pistacia, acacia. All the plants we are growing here, they are well adapted to our semi-arid or arid weather. Seed collection department is in charge to collect and supply the plants for all the nurseries of Israel, and they bring us varieties of or provenance of seeds. They are adapted to our area.
What does a plant need in order to survive in a climate like that?
To be the right species, very high quality we are producing here of the plants. Another important point is the morphology of the plants. For example, plants like acacia, they have a very small leaves, so they use very efficiently the water.
We saw in the forest over there, in Yatir,
Yes.
many pine trees.
Okay,
How come pine trees that grow in Europe, for example, grow also here in the desert?
because we are talking about different species of pine trees. We are growing the pine trees, they grow in Greece and in Turkey. They are well adapted for our area.
How do you know when a sapling is in a stage that you can provide it to be planted in the forest?
Okay, we start the plant production in the beginning of the spring, and the plants will be ready after about 6 to 8 months. We produce plants or by cuttings or by seedlings. This tree we start 6 months ago by seeds, and today is more than 1 meter tall. And you can see the root system, a very, very healthy root system.
And this tree will grow when you plant it
Yes,
without
yes.
extra water?
If we are talking about conifers, they don't supply additional irrigation in the forest. If we are talking about broadleaves like acacia or fruit trees like figs, etc., they irrigate 3 times in the first year, 2 times in the second year, 1 time in the third year, and after the fourth year, without irrigation. One of the reasons is the very high quality of root system. So that is one of the secrets of the success of the forest, the very high quality of the saplings we supply here, and the very good treatment they have in the forest.
You made Aliyah from
Yeah.
Argentina
Yes.
to Israel. You can hear it by your accent.
Yes.
Now you are responsible for so many of the trees that makes Israel green. How do you feel about that?
Very proud. When I go out from my house, I see the forest was planted after 1990. They are part of my kids. It's plants I grow from seeds or from cuttings, and I say, okay, I am responsible for this forest.
This is exciting. First of all, to know that you came all the way from Argentina to arid Israel, to dry Israel, and you changed the situation here. Amazing. Really, thank you very much.
Thanks to you.
Our last station for the second day will be here in this special place. This is an Ethiopian farm, Beit Israel. And with us, גאולה. מה קורה פה, גאולה?
אם אתה רוצה שאני אספר לך, בוא ניכנס לבית השמגלוש, שם נשתה בונה. בונה זה קפה אתיופי.
גאולה, אני חושב שאחרי היום הארוך שהיה לנו, התחלנו אותו במצדה בבוקר מוקדם, אני מוכן לשתות כוס קפה.
אז ברוך
ביי.
הבא.
This Ethiopian village is a very, very exciting place. All the story of the Ethiopian Jews is very exciting. Think about it. They were isolated in Ethiopia for many, many generations. Continue to observe the Jewish laws. Dream about Zion and Jerusalem. And after so many years, maybe 2,500 years, they had the chance to come to live with us in Israel. No one really knows how they arrived to Ethiopia. There are several traditions. You remember maybe the story about King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. there was a child, and the child took his friends and went back to Africa. Another tradition was that they are descendants of the tribe of Dan from the Bible. And another tradition said that after the destruction of the sovereignty of the Jews in this land, some communities moved to Alexandria in Egypt, and from there on the Blue Nile down to Ethiopia and to Yemen as well. This way or the other, they were isolated and dreamed to come back to Zion. And here they are with us. And let me ask Geula, were you born here or in Ethiopia?
אוקיי, אני נולדתי באתיופיה, בכפר יפהפה בצפון אתיופיה. עד גיל 8 חייתי באתיופיה, ובגיל 8 יצאתי עם הוריי ועם הקרובים שלי למסע. מסע ברגל, מפרך, מטלטל, ואחרי זה הגענו לסודאן. ובסודאן הייתי שנתיים מאוד קשות, ואחרי שנתיים עשיתי עוד מסע לארץ ישראל. המסע היה מאוד קשה, קושי פיזי ומנטלי, אבל במסע הזה גם איבדנו הרבה מיקירנו, כ4,000 תינוקות, נשים, מבוגרים שלא זכו להגיע לארץ ישראל. בזכותם אנחנו יכולים לספר פה על המסע האישי והמסע הקהילה. בזכותם אנחנו יכולים לעמוד ולספר את הסיפור הזה בארץ ישראל, אבל הם לא זכו להגיע לארץ ישראל.
I think that the journey is unbelievable story. Share with us, what is this village? What is this place?
אוקיי, אני אגיד לך מה הסיפור של הכפר. את הכפר הקימו 15 משפחות שהתגוררנו בקריית גת. היו לנו 3 מטרות מאוד חשובות שאני אמנה אותם כרגע. מטרה אחת היא לתת מקום תעסוקה למבוגרים אצלנו בקהילה. מה זה אדם מבוגר בקהילה האתיופית? אדם מבוגר בקהילה האתיופית הוא אדם מכובד, אדם עם ערכים, אדם שיחזיק את המשפחה, את הקהילה באתיופיה, אדם שיחזיק מפעל חיים. והאדם המבוגר הזה לוקח את הילדים הכי יקרים שלו ועושה את המסע. ובמסע הוא מאבד ילדים, אישה, הורים, אבל הוא לא אומר די. הוא אומר, אני רוצה להגשים את החלום. ואז הוא מגיע לארץ ישראל, ואז הוא מקבל את הסטירת לחם. אומרים בארץ ישראל, אתה אדם חלש, אדם לא מלומד, אתה תשב בצד, והילדים מתחילים להתחבר לתוך החברה הישראלית. והוא נשאר מאחורה, וככה חיינו 30 שנה. ואז אנחנו באנו, אמרנו, אנחנו צריכים להחזיר עטרה לא יושנה. אנחנו צריכים להחזיר את הכוחות והעוצמות שהיו להורים שלנו. אז לפני 12 שנה הקמנו את הכפר, ככפר חקלאי שנותן תעסוקה למבוגרים. לכל אחד יש חתיכת אדמה, מעבד את האדמה, זורע ולוקח את התוצרת הביתה. וזה יחזיר לו את הכבוד, את השורשים ואת החיבור המהותי בתוך הבית. בזכות החקלאות הוא נהיה לאדם משמעותי בתוך הבית הגרעינית שלו. לא רק המבוגרים באים לפה, גם הילדים, הנכדים, המשפחה המורחבת. מטרה שנייה זה הילדים שלנו שנולדים פה בארץ, או שבאו בגיל מאוד צעיר. ואנחנו, השאיפה שלנו, שהנוער שלנו, שהילדים שלנו יחזרו לשורשים שלהם ויהיו גאים במי שהם, בצבע שלהם. מטרה שלישית היא שהחברה הישראלית לא מכירה את יהודי אתיופיה. והשאיפה שלנו היא החברה הישראלית תחליף משקפיים אחרות ותראה פה שיש פה קהילה ייחודית, ציונית, ושהגיעה לארץ ישראל ועשתה מסע מאוד קשה, ולא רק זה, אלא הביאה איתה גם תרבות ומורשת כה עשירה והיסטוריה עתיקה בת 2,500 שנה, וזה יכולה להיות מתנה לחברה הישראלית ולעם היהודי כולו. מה אנחנו עושים בתוך הכפר? באים לפה כ-20,000 מבקרים בשנה, והם עוברים כל מיני סדנאות, כמו כתיבה באמהרית שהם כותבים את השם, או יצירה בחמר שהם עושים את התוצרת ולוקחים הביתה, מחול אתיופי, בנייה אקולוגית, בנייה בוץ, המטבח האתיופי, כדי להכיר את המטעמים שיש בתוך המטבח האתיופי, וככה יכולים להיחשף לתרבות שונה וללמוד ממנה.
It's the end of the second tour. We started early morning in Masada, After the uprising and the destruction, many communities spread all over the world. Many of them came back to the state of Israel today. And here we are with the Ethiopian Jews who came from Ethiopia and live with us here in Israel. Our group will continue tonight to sleep in Tel Aviv. Have a good night, and we will meet in the next tour in the center of Israel.
Okay, shalom everyone. I hope you enjoyed that tour. The next one won't be the center. We've already seen the center. Next one will be, of course, the north of Israel. I just want quickly to share with you a few thoughts, and then we will save a bit of time to questions. So if you have any questions, you can put it on the chat, or you can just write it to yourself, and then hopefully we will answer all the questions you have. So here we go. I'm going to share the screen one more time. Just 1 second. Okay, I'm just sharing the screen. And here we go. Great. So today, the Negev, and this is a bit of the map. I want to show it to you just very briefly, that where we have been today. So we've been in Masada, the Dead Sea, and also in the Yatir area over here in Kriyat Gat. Look, this is all the desert. 2/3 of Israel is a desert, from the south of Israel all the way to here. You can see here. And what is fascinating is that, you know, sometimes we try as human beings to change things, to change the earth. But in Israel, for thousands of years, things have been exactly the same. Yes, we have more technology, we are much more advanced, but in the end, we have our earth, our land that God gave us, Hashem gave us for more than 3,000 years. And this is our beauty of our country, and we take the best out of it. This is what is so amazing in this country. So we saw Masada. Look at the beautiful Masada. And this is a snake route that you have here. I'm sure many of you, plenty of you have been in Masada. It's very special in the morning that you go as a sunrise. It's beautiful. The sunset. It's really, really a beautiful, beautiful scene that you have in Masada. You have 750,000 visitors a year in Masada. It's 63 meters above the sea, above the sea, and 450 meters above the Dead Sea. It's amazing, and it's built Masada by King Horus. Now, one of the things that is really fascinating is in the middle of the desert, you have water, you have a reservoir. And this is one of the two that I'm going to share with you today. En Gedi is really amazing place, not only because you have fresh water all the year, but also it's mentioned in the Torah from King David, in the Tanakh. King David ran away from King Saul, and he had a good time, a fresh time in this reservoir. The second reservoir I want to speak with you is Arugot. Arugot is longer than and bigger than En Gedi, and much more wilder. Again, in the middle of the desert, beautiful, beautiful area next to Masada. Just amazing to see water running from the floods from the winter, but still also in the summer you have this beautiful water. We have some animals. Yes, the ibex animals are in Israel as well. They come from Libya and Egypt. You're not allowed to hunt them. You're not allowed to hunt them at all in Israel. And they are really, really amazing. You have 1,500 ibex in Israel today. Okay, and they are protected. You cannot hunt them. And in Libya and in in Egypt, you hunt them because you can see the horns, you can see the shofar, and etc. You can make them, but in Israel, you're not allowed to. Well, if you know me, and if you saw my other tours, I am so passionate to always connect our modern Israel to our history Israel. And this is En Gedi synagogue that we have in Israel. It's from the 3rd century, where it says in Hebrew here that you should remember all the good that people donated to this shul. You can see it's all mosaic. Already then they asked for donations. And you can see here that the same Jonathan was the Gabai or the Gvir who gave most of the money, and that's why they mention his name on this. And another thing they found on the floor was a list of rules in Hebrew about what can you do and what can't you do if you want to be a member of the shul. Not so much change in our time today. I want to give a bit of just a short glimpse of the Dead Sea. I wanted to see the difference about the Dead Sea today and how it was just a few years ago. So you can see here, the Dead Sea was actually one Dead Sea, okay, the south area and the north area. And look what happened in the 90s and then in our time, and today it's much more. It's actually divided to two. What's the main reason for that? How come it become from one Dead Sea to actually two islands of the Dead Sea? The main reason is that when David Ben-Gurion was prime minister in the early 50s, he saw that the biggest problem that we don't have enough fresh water. And the Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee, was the only fresh water we could drink from. Today, remember, we don't drink any water from the Kinneret. We have desalination factories, 5 of them all around the country. This is where we drink the water today. But in that time, we didn't have that. So he saw that 200 million cube every year goes from the Kinneret to the Dead Sea. Dead Sea has to get fresh water to the salty water. If not, it will just disappear. So he had to stop it, and he stopped 150 million cube, not all of it, 150 million cube from going all the way from the Kinneret to the Dead Sea. That was good for the Kinneret because then we had enough water, but very bad for the Dead Sea. Look, you can see here, because of that, we don't have a lot of fresh water. That was the main problem. And this is what we have. We have a seriously problem, and we share the Dead Sea with Jordans. You can see that we have as well sinkholes that you can see all around the Dead Sea. This is from the heat for global warming. This is hot water coming in and actually creating those sinkholes. And look at these magnificent pictures that we have from the Dead Sea. I'm sure that if you've been in the Dead Sea, you've been there, you went to you put your mud on and you went just to float on the water. It's one of a kind. Where can you see that if not in Israel? And this is a really magnificent pictures that you can see from as well, from the salt that you have here. And unfortunately, because of the heat, because of the hot, it's actually melting the salt, and that's why we see a lot of sinkholes over there. You can see the tree. We have a tree. Yes, can you believe it? Nobody can understand how come in the middle of the Dead Sea we have a tree, no leaves, but just a tree in the island of this salty water. I want to this is just 2 pictures of the snake path in Masada, and this is the sunrise, but I want to go to the largest forest in Israel. And you know, when I go and teach kids about trees and planting, everybody tell me, Igal, you're crazy, you can't plant trees in the desert. Only in Israel you can. More than 4 million trees. Look at how many trees planted by people. I'm sure that if you planted or you donated trees, this is all of your trees here. And this is 4 million trees only in one forest, in the largest forest called Ya'ar Yatir, in the middle of the Negev. Remember, JNF has planted more than 250 million trees around Israel, and planted by people. Yes, planted by people. So this is just a magnificent, and we are continuing planting because we love our country, and this is how amazing the country is. Not only, we don't have only pine trees and other trees, but we have also, of course, our almond trees that we have from Tu B'Shvat, that is coming after the summer, and we have our beautiful flowers. Now, I want to share and finish the last thing of today, because if we cannot share our people of Israel, how can we describe Israel? I mean, Israel, yes, it's a land, it's important, the place that we live, where we go to visit, historical places, the Kotel, different places. But without the special people, Israel can't be as progress, as amazing as it is now. And every time I'll share with you a different story about a different people, because we have amazing people among us in Israel. And one of them is Moshe. This guy, Moshe, he was a general in the army for many, many years. One of the things that he saw and that really bothered him was that he saw that if you, I don't know if you know that, but if you are 18 years old and you have a criminal record behind you, you cannot go to the army. So if you went to prison or you have a serious criminal record behind you, the army release you. And what happened to those boys or girls who has a criminal record? They just disappear. They go down in the hill where they were before. There's no really a place that can tell them we trust you, we believe at you, as the army do to so many young people. But Moshe wanted to change that, so he quit the army and he started a new organization where he says acharai, so after me, and he convinced the army to say, give me an opportunity to open a gap year when they come to 18 to 19 years old, with boys with criminal records. After that year, reassess them. And if you see that they are switched, they are more behaved, they learn, and they're ready to the army, I want you to take them to the army. And for 1 year, he trained them, not only mentally, but also physically. And he speaks to them, not only as a psychologist, or he has, of course, many professional people, but also as a father, as a leader. And he does it because he sees the need of not only get the elite people in Israel, but also get those who really need, just to have someone to tell them, we believe in you, in you. And you can see those people, all of them have criminal records, who are different stories, horrible stories. And without Moshe, they will never go to the army. And I want to finish with this guy. This guy is Uliel Shimon. He's an Ethiopian guy that when he was 14 years old, he went to a bar and stabbed someone. He didn't die, that person, but he was very, very hard injured. And Uliel went to 3 years to prison. And when he got released, when he was 17 years old, he didn't know what to do. Of course, the army was a shut door. So he went where he lived in Lud, drugs and other criminal things. But when he was 18, somebody heard that Moshe opened this gap here. And he told Uliel, do you want to change your life? Do you want to get a new opportunity? And he said yes. He went to this gap year. He went to the army. He became an officer. And today he is a leader, one of the madrichim in this gap year. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of many, of millions of beautiful stories of people that are willing to give themselves to our beloved country. That's all, everyone, from my end. I would love to hear questions. And if you have anything to say, or Jackie, you want to read questions that are people. This is your floor now.
Any questions from anybody? Feel free to unmute yourself. Just put up your hand so I can see. Or just say your name and you can ask any questions. Anyone? There's a lot of things on the chat. Let me just see what's on the chat here. I'm still not the most technological person, so here we go.
Marion, did you want to ask Marion Dobos? No? Oh, just waving.
Okay, so that's absolutely fine. The tours.
Jackie, can I ask someone? Is someone here never been in the Dead Sea or Masada? Is someone never been physically, not virtually? Is there someone here never been? You can just unmute yourself if you never have.
Shirley Mueller has never been. I see her hand.
Shirley, okay. Can I speak with her? Can you unmute her?
Yeah, she can unmute herself now. No? You should be able to unmute yourself, Shirley. It's all right.
I think you have to unmute everybody.
Yeah, I've given everybody the okay to unmute themselves.
No problem.
so-
In the meantime, when Tommy is trying to unmute them, I just want to say that very, very soon, very soon, I'm going to take people to Israel for a tour. We're going to start the education tour, the educated tour as we stopped in 2020. We took 202 teachers, principals, Jewish, non-Jewish, to Israel for 10 days to see our amazing country. And we're going to retake now, not only teachers, but also other missions to Israel, hopefully in 2022. So if you are interested, and if you want to see those places that we just visited, stay tuned, stay connected to your emails, to functions that we're going to have. I'm sure Tammy and Jackie will have so many functions, and hopefully in 2022, I just hope that your premier will open the border, all the restrictions very soon. And we want to take you there because there's nothing like taking you physically to the place and show you so many amazing places. And I always, say that we have the Israelis, especially, we have something in our character called chutzpah, right? Chutzpah. How can you explain chutzpah to a non-Jewish person? I have neighbors next to me, and sometimes they ask me, can you teach me a word in Hebrew? And I said, well, chutzpah. Well, is it chutzpah? I'm not sure in Hebrew. Maybe I think it's in Yiddish, no? So he said, what is chutzpah? And I was like thinking, it's someone who's there. And I asked my wife, what is chutzpah? You can't explain it. You just can't. You need to be physically next to a person, next to Israeli, that doesn't accept no for an answer. And try, one door is closed, he goes to the next door. This is Israel, a chutzpah the country. That's the only way how Israel is now existing. Because remember, in 1948, before Ben Gurion was, announcing the Declaration of Independence and announcing the state of Israel, America, so many leaders told them, wait, don't do it. We will make peace with the Arabs. They will be so angry. Ben Gurion said, not in my country. I will do it first. He was a chutzpahdik. And that's why, with a lot of chutzpah, sometimes too much, right? Israeli has a bit too much. But with a lot of chutzpah, we're making our country so beautiful.
Yofi. Well, I will just say thank you so much to Yigal. From Bella, Jack, and I, thank you so much, everybody. You know what we can possibly consider, and I will speak to management and I will speak to everybody. I just had this epiphany while you were talking that we do a JNForever tour. That's something we can consider. So let's all put our thinking caps on. So from Bella, Jack, and I want to thank you all so much for being here. As soon as the skies are open, we're going to make some plans. This concludes this week's journey. We'll be back next week for the second in this part. We're going to be going to northern Israel, again, filled with beautiful hidden gems and beauty. And I look forward to seeing you all on the bus again, and with wonderful Yigal, with all his wonderful wisdom. And until then, take care and have a salubrious day. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Litrot, shalom. See you soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. See you guys.
Nice to see your cat, Irene. I like that furry character. We like them. They're always welcome.
Good. Thanks.
Bye all.
Bye, guys.